This show is such a damn delight. It has a smile almost the entirety of every episode. The only time I wasn't smiling in this episode was like the first 5 minutes because they were kind of giving this like horror aesthetic where you're just like, what the hell is going on? Clearly there's not a real giant killer robot, but still it was meant to kind of evoke a little bit of spookiness in you. But just watching the transition of how this robot club was hiring our girls to make a robot anime, and just how on one hand you start thinking, oh, you know, there's a lot of demands, there's a lot of people saying do this, but they're the artists, they know what's best. But what they ended up doing was pretty much mirroring their own love for creating anime, but with robots, and how everyone has to be satisfied. And in doing so, they actually just showed the viewer a side of production committees, because a lot of times when things are changed or reworked, whether that because they're adapting a manga and they say, hey, we don't want it to feel like this, we want it to feel a lot more satisfying as an anime, often people will rip into the studio, the director, things like that, but it's almost always the production committee, the people funding the project, who make all of these tiny decisions. Whether they're good decisions or not is obviously up to you. But I like how what we just got was a miniature production committee, but it all surrounds by love of anime and robots, and that was amazing. This episode was hilarious. I mean, just the fact that we can have our girls fall through the floor after saying, hey, you know, let's walk along the walls, but everyone's like, no, that's stupid, you're just overreacting, and then minutes later fall through the floor, and you think, okay, this is gonna get serious. Nope. We got a survival kit where we can put a knife in a sock and just toss it over with some rope. I was like, okay, the rope's gonna break. Alright, so they're absolutely prepared. This anime is ridiculous, and one of the cutest things that was in this episode is when we have Mizusagi, who is basically just like taking photographs of where they could basically design their anime, because everything is being designed around the school, which is really cool because they have a really interesting location that they can pick apart and make a multitude of anime off of. And I like how when she's basically like looking at, oh, this looks like it could crumble, and you're seeing kind of like the explosions, you're hearing her just do like these like adorable sound effects as if she's actually seeing it happening. Just that little bits of detail, the little small things that aren't overly important, they add up so quickly. Within half of an episode, you just think of all the small little details that they didn't have to add in, whether it be how a voice actor delivered her lines, or how the visuals looked in a certain way, how a scene was lit, or how a scene was written. All those little moments build up to such a large reason on why this show is spectacular, because honestly, if you were to explain to someone why this anime was amazing, and you don't mention who the director is, it would be difficult in a simple way to say why a bunch of kids creating anime is so fun. You might be able to say it looks really interesting and maybe that could be a hook to get people engaged in terms of watching it, but it's like 1,000 small things that makes it so amazing. It really isn't a specific character. I love my girl Kanamori, like, she's my favorite character of this season so far. I love her, but she's not the reason the show works. She is a big reason, but not the reason. And when you have a project that is surrounding the creativity of anime, both on the production side and now more on the business side, as we got with this week's episode and even last week with the whole student council, I'm loving how they are putting so much attention into 1,000 different areas to make it feel like this is a gem of a show and is going to compete with a lot of people for saying what is the best anime that is all about the production and creating of it. And that was something that wasn't going to be much of a competition for a lot of people until this anime. And I loved that. Just the idea that you have these like nerds, and all the characters are nerds. Nerds for creating anime, nerds for creating robots, and how, you know, they just want to fly robots, you know? They want to pilot a robot, they want it to be a certain way, but realistically it's never going to happen because why would you make this when you can just make a tank or something like that? And I love how they ended up bonding because they all have their absurd ideas of whether they want to go to space or they want to be in a robot or they want to do this or that. And really, I think a lot of the viewers watching are probably going to be the Kanamori in this situation, being like, what in the absolute hell is wrong with you? But of course, there's going to be those people as well connecting with them, being like, damn it, I have this dream too, and that dream's never going to happen. Let's make the anime to your satisfaction. And I was pretty much on board with what they were going for originally. Like, okay, crab-looking monster, mixture of a crab and a turtle, that's cool. Chainsaw, you're using that to propel yourself forward. That's badass. There's going to be nothing wrong with this production. And immediately they were unhappy with it. And I'm sure there's going to be some people being like, you know, I was a little disappointed. Like, what the hell? These guys are assholes. They didn't want to go with it. But they're the production committee, right? They're the one funding the project. You gotta make the people with the money happy, otherwise there'll be no money to be able to create the project in question. And I really like what they brought up with money, because there's obviously that gag and that gimmick with Kanamori being all about the business side, the financial side, but that is a huge part. And the question gets brought up in this anime where, well, would it be better if we didn't have to worry about money and could just create from the heart? And Kanamori shuts that down very quickly, but I have to agree with her, because the idea of money, while that does ruin a lot of things, there has to be something to keep people grounded, because if you just let people run wild, things really wouldn't get finished, and they probably would be finished in a very stupid way. Because even if you have this great idea that you are confident in, 100% it will be the greatest thing of all time. In this case, it's an anime. Say we have this idea and we don't have to worry about money, we can take 10 years if we want. By the time you finish it, it's not going to be as great as it was in your head. But if you have that weight of money holding you down in a healthy way, not a stressful way, you'll be able to do something on a timely manner and not just say, okay, I'm going to spend a year animating this 10-minute fight scene. Maybe it will be cool by the end, but did you really need to take an entire year to do so? So I actually like how they're bringing up the concept of finances on the business side of this anime production, because you do need something to hold them down. And as I've mentioned, if Kanamori wasn't around, she takes a single day off from school, she's going to come back to these girls basically just building a tree fort because they think they need a visual representation of their next creation, when it's like, you had work to do, now we're behind in the production line. I love that about this anime, how they're bringing it up in such a blunt way, but making it so cute in the process, as if the team is probably having a blast, being like, this is what we have to deal with. Of course, we're killing ourselves a lot of times to make it, but the fact is, like, if we just didn't have to worry about finances, we probably would make a lot of stupid ideas seem important, and then the project would just become a jumbled mess of artistic ideas not really kind of coming together in an elegant way. There is something about a mainstream appeal that you do want to appeal to a large variety of people, and if you did just have like a bunch of these minds kind of butting heads and kind of mixing and matching ideas, it pretty much would be super unappealing besides to maybe 100 people. And maybe if that was your life's goal and you were retired, sure, but if you're kind of an up-and-coming animator, I definitely think the idea of finances holding them down is a good thing, and I love that about this episode. Not a lot of people will probably care about it, but it's those little details that actually really are showing the business side of the production, even though we're more or less looking at the creative side of it. It's nice that they are giving us that little taste in this episode, because we pretty much did get a production committee in the way of a robot club, which was pretty badass. I really liked the first little chunk of this episode because they really directed it as this like horror aesthetic, as you see like a robot walking around. I thought it was going to be a delusion or something, but I liked how it actually was a real thing, just obviously wasn't as, missile deadly as they were making it out to be, and how you see like Kanamori being like, oh, it'll kill the enemies, huh? And you're just seeing like the recruitment, and we got our characters being like, wait, if 66% of the club is gone, that must mean that it's a red herring and I'm really the one, I've been brainwashed. Like, there is such an obliviousness to so much in this anime, and I love that. It is so innocent and pure that you're always cracking up at the absurdity. And when they get grounded and really serious, like, their minds are such creative geniuses. Like, I really like seeing the, like, rough around the edges appeal to their designs and their concept art and things like that when they're starting to design basically what the robot will look like. They underwent a lot of changes in this episode, and it was amazing to watch that transformation take place, because it really felt like we were a part of this production, seeing the starting stages and seeing where the finished stages hopefully will land. Obviously, where it's going to land is all going to depend if they can actually make such a complex robot with all of these like little gadgets and things actually work in a very interesting way, because it looks a little too complex for its own good. Maybe this production will completely crash and burn, or maybe it will end up in a very satisfying way. I think it will kind of depend on whether Kanamori can kind of keep them grounded and make sacrifices where they need to, because I think there's going to need to be some sacrifices to this project. I mean, it seems like a little too complex for a starting production, especially their first paid production, but only time will tell for sure. But this was a great episode. It just kind of feels like the momentum continues to improve with each week, and like what we love about the anime, it's within the next episode, but then there's something we didn't know we wanted to see. In this case, it was probably that like first 30 episode where it's just like, what is going on? Why are they directing this like a horror movie? I love that little curveball, and in return, it kind of set the motion for what they were building up to towards the end, and probably the best way they could direct it. This anime just never fails to make me so happy, as if it's like, once again, rekindling my love for anime. And I love anime. I love watching anime every season. I rarely get burnt out or even have that feeling kind of creeping up, but it almost feels like when an episode of this wonderful series ends, I feel like, man, it's like I've never watched anime before and I'm so ready to digest 100 series. Far too short of a time frame, but screw it, it's just too awesome, so screw the real world, right? I love that about this show. It just rekindles that love nonstop, and who knows what's going to happen with next week's episode. I mean, every time you think you know where they want to go with it, they usually do something either slightly or majorly different, and in this episode, I'd say they majorly did something different with the more, like, creepy atmosphere, even though a lot of it was pretty comfy and as we expected. It was nice to have that interesting curveball, and who knows what they'll do next week. I'm sure there'll be some struggles with the production, and I'm sure we're going to have our leader in charge kind of hold them back down to reality so they don't completely say, I'm going to spend a month animating this one little chainsaw bit or something like that. It'll be fun to see where they're going to take it, but once again, I leave an episode just a grin on my face, feeling so at peace, as if I'm just went to some form of therapy, and the therapy was just 20 minutes of an anime. Love it, and I can't wait to see more. But what did everyone think? Let me know for fans of the source material anime originals like myself. Where do you think next week's episode is going to go? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.